Some players are concerned about the upcoming changes to damage types and status. They think that it's a nerf and that no one would use the new mechanic for this damage type. Well, I'm here to explain everything about all damage type changes and how you can have fun with the new changes coming in Echoes of Duviri. But before we begin, I would like to announce that I'll be giving away a Wisp Prime access. Now, you might wonder how this is related to the video. Well, Echoes of Duviri will be available this July 27th along with Wisp Prime, and to celebrate this, Digital Extremes has handed me a Wisp Prime access to give away to my community. It's worth noting that this is the highest tier of Wisp Prime access, which includes everything from the new Prime warframe and weapons to the new Prime accessories. Additionally, there are bonuses such as glyphs, platinum that you can spend, and boosters that you can use to ease up the grind. All of this can be yours by simply commenting on this video about what you're most excited about in the upcoming Echoes of Duviri update. Don't forget to include your in-game name and the platform you are playing on so I can easily send your rewards to Digital Extremes. This giveaway is open to all platforms, and I will announce the winner in this channel. So be sure to subscribe and turn on all notifications so you won't miss the giveaway announcement and other daily content we upload. Good luck to all of you, and now let's begin the video. So what's the current state of impact damage? Basically, impact damage is one of the 3 physical damage types. This damage type is effective at quickly draining corpus shields, but it does comparatively less damage to corpus and Grineer bodies. The status effect of impact damage is stagger, which causes enemies to flinch and recoil backwards. Subsequent procs increase the stagger duration to 10 stacks, with each stack having its own duration of 6 seconds. However, Ospreys, Bosses and Tenno are immune to the stagger effect. Against heavy units, such as all Humanoid Eximus, Heavy Gunner, Bombard, Scrambus and Comba, Nullifier Crewman, Ancient Disruptor, Ancient Healer and Toxic Ancient, the impact damage additionally increases the health threshold at which they can be Parazon Mercy killed by 4 Pop Roar, allowing them to be vulnerable at up to 80 of their total health, and can be 100s on Corpus and Eximus with all their shields removed. Additionally, enemies killed by an impact pros will have their corpses ragdolled and flown away, regardless of the amount of force behind the weapon. Overall, impact is great against shields but weak against armor and health, and it has a stagger effect that can lead to a Parazon Mercy kill after a couple of impact procs. Now let's discuss impact, since many are saying that this is the weakest change of them all. Digital Extremes will simply reduce the maximum amount of stacks from 10 to 5 and then increase the Mercy threshold from 4% to 8% per stack. The main goal here is to reduce the time it takes to perform a Mercy kill with impact damage. But let me ask you this, who uses finisher builds nowadays? In the past, Warframe was all about nuking enemies, and right now the added Incarnate weapons provide another way of killing enemies. Finisher builds were known in the past, but they are not that popular in the Warframe community right now. I think the only players who use finisher builds are those who want to try the true damage of a combo or experiment with the arcane trickery. I might be wrong, but only a few use finisher builds in my opinion. Regarding Warframe synergy, I think impact would work well with a marked for death combo or even a finisher build setup with Kulevo. Without any weapons that can expose enemies to finisher damage, or without the Nariman focus, you can use a high-impact damage weapon such as the Stropher to pros impact, and then finish off enemies with a finisher build. The same goes for Kulevo. With his collective curse, the improved impact mechanic would be useful in hastening the exposure of enemies to finishers and allowing you to kill those enemies cursed by Kulevo as well. However, as I mentioned earlier, finisher builds are mostly for fun, and you can't expect them to outdamage the insane nuking builds prevalent right now. Moving on, let's discuss the upcoming puncture changes. Currently, puncture is highly effective against Grineer armor and Corpus robotics, but struggles against Corpus shields. Its status effect is called Weakened, which causes the victim's attacks to deal 30% less damage over 6 seconds. Subsequent puncture procs add 5% reduced damage, up to 75% in total after 10 stacks, with each pros having its own duration. To be honest, the weakened status effect is undeniably lackluster right now, especially since there are many Helminth builds that can provide damage reduction more easily. It's kind of strange to build a gun specifically for damage reduction when we usually focus on maximizing damage in modding. Thankfully, the upcoming Echoes of Duviri update will change the way puncture works, but there are concerns about the status effect being a double-edged sword. While it may improve some weapons, it could be annoying for some of the strongest weapons in the game. In Echoes of Duviri, the weakened status effect will receive a buff and an additional feature. Digital Extremes will increase the debuff to enemy attacks from 30% to 40% on the first stack, and they will reduce the maximum amount of stacks from 10 to 5. Additionally, they will increase the per stack debuff from 5% to 10% and raise the total debuff at max stacks from 75% to 80%. Lastly, the developer will add a feature wherein puncture increases critical chance threshold on enemies by 5% per stack, up to a maximum of 25% at 5 stacks. This increase is additive after mods, not before, and Digital Extremes clarified that this does not apply to abilities or area of effect damage. The critical chance buff is interesting, and it would pair well with bullet hose weapons and other hard-hitting hit-scan weapons. However, my biggest concern with this is how it will work with the Laetum or any Incarnon weapon that has the Devouring Attrition perk. As you all know, this perk grants 2000% damage to your Incarnon weapon, but the catch is that you need to go for a non-critical build to get the buff all the time. In the case of Laetum, I believe non-critical builds won't be affected since the Incarnon form of this evolving pistol has an area of effect, meaning the critical chance buff from the puncture pros won't trigger. It is important to note that the gun has no puncture damage at all, being purely based on impact and slash damage in its normal state, and radiation in its Incarnon form. However, the primary counterpart of Latium, named Fenmore, might get affected by this change to puncture damage. The Fenmore has no area of effect in its Incarnon form, and its stat distribution includes puncture. After the update, Devouring Attrition builds for this Incarnon rifle might be nerfed, as every time you hit an enemy, there's a chance to do critical hits, reducing the effectiveness of any Devouring Attrition build. This could potentially lead to a high demand for negative puncture ribbons in the warframe market. The good news, though, is that Overwhelming Attrition builds could still achieve red critical hits easily after the update, but it would require significant adjustments to your setup. You would need to acquire a critical chance ribbon or add arcanes and warframe abilities to achieve those red critical numbers. So, there's an alternative build available, making it not as crucial, right? Kind of, but there's actually a time wherein players prefer to use Devouring Attrition over Overwhelming Attrition, and vice versa. To keep it short, you can use Devouring Attrition if you don't want to aim at heads and just spam area of effect shots using primed pistol gambit, or want to abuse Exarter's Whisper's insane double dip. On the other hand, you can use Overwhelming Attrition if you want to be more precise and aim at heads for up to 2 to 3 times higher damage, and tons of headshot damage multiply while using Arcane Deadhead. Overwhelming Attrition also gives you a constant buff, but Devouring Attrition gives you insane damage with minimal investment. Players who love the Fenmore and using an Overwhelming Attrition build should expect that their damage will fall off slightly after the Echoes of Duviri update. I think the best way to counter it is to obtain a weapon with a negative riven. To be honest, building Overwhelming Attrition is quite easy, and even with riven mods, all you need is to acquire something with negative critical chance. However, currently, I don't believe that even a negative puncture riven could save it, as obtaining one would be difficult, and you should always prefer negative critical chance for an Overwhelming Attrition build. Last but not least, let's talk about the cold status changes, which I think will make Frost a great warframe. Digital Extremes will be buffing the freeze status of cold, increasing the maximum amount of stacks from 8 to 9. Additionally, they will increase the additional per stack slow from 3.5% to 5%. Moreover, the maximum slow effect will receive a huge buff, going from 75% currently to 90% after the Echoes of Duviri update. The best part is that they are adding a new feature for the freeze status. When enemies are affected by the status effect, they will have an increase in critical damage by 10% on the initial status effect. Subsequent stacks will increase this debuff by 5%, up to a maximum of 50%, and this is additive after mods, not before. However, there wouldn't be a problem, as any increase in damage is good. Honestly, this changes everything we know about cold. After Echoes of Duviri, the freeze status will not only be good for crowd control, but also act as a damage buffer on weapons and warframe abilities. It's a no-brainer that Frost will benefit the most from this change, but there's also the fact that area of effect nuking weapons, such as the Kuva Brahma or any other Incarnon nuking weapons, can be paired with cold and corrosive to both crowd controlled and damage a group of enemies. Another thing worth mentioning is that gloom and cold stacking will be insane, and I can't wait to see how slow the movement of demolist units will be after Echoes of Duviri. Eventually, any weapons with cold can be used against demolist units right now, since this would slow them down by 90%. This is obviously the best status buff in the Echoes of Duviri update, and I can't wait to try a bunch of synergies with the new free status changes. So that's all about it. I hope that you learned something from this video. Don't forget to comment down below on what things you look forward to in Echoes of Duviri, so you can have an entry in our Wisp Prime Access giveaway. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, everyone, and I will see you in my next video.